You're listening to The Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
Any language is tough to try and describe who he is, but we do know that God Most High is one of his names. When Scripture speaks of God as high, exalted, or lifted up, it's not saying he lives far away from us and we can't know him. Rather, it's saying that God is King, he's Lord. In other words, biblical transcendence is a way of saying God's lordship attributes attributes of control and authority. He is the Lord of everything. He is in control of everything. In other words, he's Lord over all.
Our language is extremely limited when it comes to describing God. He existed before anything we can imagine was in existence, including the languages of man. He exists now, just as he did 1,000,000 years before Earth was given shape, and he already exists in the future. That's hard to wrap our heads around, but God isn't limited by time. As Pastor Ken will remind us, God is also with us in the here and now in an intimate way, knowing and loving our hearts more deeply than we can grasp. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Zechariah, chapter 11, as he continues his message, Consequences.
This guy is going to have a withered right arm and a right eye. It could be that he's got cybernetic implants on that side. We don't know. By the time the beast has this appearance, though, it will be obvious to the people of Israel they put their trust in the wrong person. He's a counterfeit shepherd, not the good shepherd. And he is considered worthless. The phrase goes from foolish shepherd to worthless here in the last verse of chapter 11. This foolish, worthless individual is a required precursor, by the way, for the main event, which is yet to come, the second coming of Jesus Christ. You got to have this guy first. And this is an event that we're seeing, and we're at the midpoint of the tribulation when this starts showing up in Zechariah. And that is going to be the focus of the rest of the book. From chapter 12 on, we're talking about the attempted destruction of the city of Jerusalem that takes place at Armageddon. So we're going to be zipping forward to that point in time. Verses 1 to 3 of chapter 12. The pronouncement of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. The Lord who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, informs the spirit of a person within him, declares, Behold, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes staggering to all the peoples around it. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. It will come about on that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will injure themselves severely, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. This is prophecy from Zechariah. And it's what the Lord has been leading up to with everything else in the book. He's pointing towards this. We've learned because of the fulfilled prophecy that took place during Zechariah's lifetime, as well as those things that have taken place since then, up to stuff that we're seeing happen today, that he's reliable as a prophet. You can take to the bank what he says. We need to understand that as we start reading chapter 12 moving forward. When he speaks in the name of the Lord, that's who he's speaking from, that's who he's speaking for, and what he's saying will happen as he says it will. So we have to listen carefully to what he has to say. Now, up to this point, the discussion which began in chapter 11 had been about the shepherd that Israel would reject and the one they would accept. The foolish shepherd is the one we know as the Antichrist or the beast. He's still providing prophecy to the nation of Israel, Zechariah is. And by saying so here, he's implying that the broken staff that we saw earlier, he's talking now like it's been repaired. It's whole. But the staff was broken, and only the Lord can be the one who repaired it. That staff, of course, is the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And they're coming back to Israel right now. We see that happening, but not totally combined yet. There's still millions of members of the Israeli nation who could become part of Israel who are living in other nations right now. Here the Lord reemphasizes that. And the very first thing the Lord does is in his prophecy is he declares he is the creator. He has to, because guess what kind of information people believe in today? Evolution. So the Lord has to remind people living in the last days, he's the creator. And there's another reason for referencing Israel here too. That's what these 3 chapters are about. It's all about Israel. God's not done with Israel yet. A lot of people think that he is and that there's no more future for Israel. And what he's saying is, oh no, this is all about Israel. And if you study the book of Revelation, starting in chapter 4, the church is no longer referenced. It's all about Israel. So Zechariah is saying the same thing. The nation did indeed reject the good shepherd. He came to redeem all mankind, including the remnant of the Jews who believe or will believe. God's not done with Israel yet, not at all. And in these 3 chapters, we're going to see everything he has in store for his own people. There's another reason why this meshes well with Revelation 2. Since the end of chapter 3, again, it's because the church is gone. It's all about the day of the Lord, and the church has been removed. The day of the Lord begins after the rapture. So it doesn't happen until then. That's what Paul was trying to tell the folks in Thessalonica. Nope, it hasn't started yet. We have to be taken out of here. Then it starts. The day of the Lord is a period of time. It's the Great Tribulation and the Millennium. Both of those things are in it. It ends at the end of the Great White Throne. And once we enter the eternal state in the New Jerusalem, it's not the day of the Lord anymore. The next 3 chapters are also referred to sometimes as the little apocalypse of Zechariah, compared to the book of Revelation, which is the apocalypse. Revelation, that's what it means, okay? Apocalypse just means a revealing. It's the little revealing of Zechariah. So it's about Israel, but it's also about the judgment of God on the nations of the world. And as such, Yahweh is identified here at the beginning as the creator of everything. And as such, he has the right to enact judgment on Israel and on the nations of the world. And he references all of the realms that are going to be judged here. He's the one who created the heavens, which witnessed the rebellion of some of the unseen realm, including a guy named Lucifer and a whole bunch of angels called Watchers and other fallen angels. He created the earth, which was the scene for the fall of man in Genesis 3, the corruption of man in Genesis 6, involving rebellious divine beings in both situations. And then there's the rebellion of Genesis chapter 11, where mankind just said, yeah, we should go everywhere as you told Noah, but we're not going to do it. We're going to live here in Babel. And now we have 70 different language groups and lots of fun. We learn here that God has been and still is deeply involved in his creation. That's what this is showing us here in these first 3 verses. To use a theological term, what it means is he is immanent in his creation. He is also transcendent over his creation. Now, those are 2 terms that are used a lot in theology books, and there have been a lot of books just written on those 2 terms. I'm going to see if I can summarize them for you in about 6 minutes, okay? We'll see how I do. When Scripture uses up there language like this, okay, theologians will say, well, it's transcendence. When Scripture speak of God down here, they say, well, it's immanence, okay? So transcendence is up there language, immanence is he's here with us. He's both, as shown here in Zechariah 12, at the same time. He laid out the heavens, he laid out the earth, but he also created the spirit that's within all of us. You got big out there stuff, creating all the heavens, the universe, creating the earth, but also caring for each of us individually. So you got both these things happening. When we say God is immanent in his creation, we are saying God is always distinct from the world. He's the creator. We're the creature. We're the ones that he made. Yet he is clearly revealed in the world. Just read Romans chapter 1, verses 18 to 21. Everybody knows. God does come to be with his creatures, the person of Jesus Christ. And that's marvelous that he does that. He wants a relationship with us. He is immanent in his creation. When we say he is transcendent over his creation, it doesn't mean he's so high we can't understand him or know him. I've heard people say, oh, he's too high, we can't know him, he's just too out there. Our language is limiting. I've got to admit that. English is not a good language to try and describe God. Any language is tough to try and describe who he is. But we do know that God Most High is one of his names. When Scripture speaks of God as high, exalted, or lifted up, it's not saying he lives far away from us and we can't know him. Rather, it's saying that God is king, he's Lord. In other words, biblical transcendence is a way of saying God's lordship attributes of control and authority. He is the Lord of everything. He is in control of everything. In other words, he's Lord over all. He's transcendent. He's Lord over everything. God's lordship means he controls everything and speaks with absolute authority. And there's a third element here too. In some ways, and I think it's more precious than any of it, his commitment to us means he is with us as believers in Jesus Christ. His presence is with us. He's Lord over all, yet he's inside of each of us as believers. And then finally, there's the issue that man, we're created as a physical being. There's a spiritual side to us that was impacted as a result of what happened in Genesis 3. When we come to Christ, that is in the process of being brought to life again so that we can understand and commune with the Lord and speak to him on a level spiritually that we couldn't speak to physically. That spirit in those who do not believe is still in rebellion to Yahweh. For those who do believe, it's not in rebellion anymore. We have peace with the Lord. What we see here in Zechariah 12:2 are attributes of God beyond what we've already discussed. We also see here that he is the creator, but as creator, he's omnipotent. That means he's all-powerful. He couldn't create the world unless he was omnipotent. He's omniscient. He knows everything. God is the one who creates with a word. I can't create anything with the word. I can't even create things with my hands very well, quite frankly. I was trained how to destroy stuff, not to build stuff. I'm really good at tearing things apart. You want to put it back together? Find somebody else. I'm not your guy. He confronts us as the one who was in existence before anything we can even imagine was in existence. And he will be there after anything we can imagine. He is the one that we have to deal with. He is. He is wisdom. He is knowledge. The very first thing to remember about God is he is Lord. Period. He is Yahweh. He is the I am. And as the Lord, he is the personal, holy head of the covenant that Israel abrogated. And he's also the head of the new covenant, which we have the joy of being involved in as a result of giving our life to Jesus Christ. He is in full control of the world he made. He has never not been in control. He speaks to us in his word with absolute authority. And you've got people today who think, no, he didn't. He changed his mind on this. He changed his mind on that. We've got mega church pastors in Atlanta, Georgia, who think he's changed his mind on sexual ethics. And no, God hasn't. He's spoken with authority, and he's never changed his mind on these items. He commits himself to be with us in the person of Emmanuel, Jesus Christ, God with us. And as creator of everything, out of nothing in the beginning, he's able to recreate a new heaven and a new earth, which we read about in the book of Revelation, including forming a new society in Zechariah's culture there in Judah, where they had been destroyed before as a result of the exile in Babylon. God's creating something new there, and he's trying to help build that, and they're already trying to tear it apart. He also creates individual human beings. That's what God does. He forms the spirit of man within him, which means he can remake individuals as well as society as a whole. That's what he's going to do at the end of the age. When the millennial reign of Jesus Christ begins, that's when everything changes. In that recreating work, the one thing we're going to see is Jerusalem is going to be used as the instrument of his judgment upon the nations. And that's what we're going to see here in Zechariah chapter 12, 13, and 14. Verses 2 and 3, behold, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes staggering to all the peoples around. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, so he's talking about a future event, but he's also talking about something that's taking place right now. It'll also be against Judah. It'll come about on that day. I'll make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will injure themselves severely, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. I find it amazing in our present world today that the nations of the world continue to try and figure out, what do we do about Jerusalem? His people are back in the land, okay? It's the Feast of Tabernacles is going on right now. And in celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles this week, a Levitical choir of over 1,000 Levites reenacted the temple choir of 2,000 years ago at the Huldah steps, which served as the entrance to the Temple Mount during its existence. And they divided themselves and sang songs from the Psalms, the first time these songs had been sung out loud in 2,000 years. You want to listen to it. It's interesting to listen to. They have the horns. They got everything going on as they worship the Lord. There is also a growing move in Israel today to rebuild the temple. There is an organization called the Temple Institute. They already have architectural renderings done, completed. You can see them on the internet if you so care to see. They have ladders just like the old temple did. They also have an elevator. They understand modern technology. But they think that once they're given the go-ahead, they can have it up within 18 months to 2 years. They've already got many of the materials ready to go. They already have gathered them together. They've already built a bunch of them. They've identified those Levites who will be priests. They're training them. They've also identified who will be the high priest. And they've used genetic testing to make sure they're also descended of Aaron. There's another organization in Jerusalem called the Shozrim Lahar. It's a movement. And they've vowed that sacrifices will resume soon and the third temple will be rebuilt. In fact, they keep getting arrested trying to start doing sacrifices on the Temple Mount. You can't miss them. They're the ones standing in line holding a sheep. They are. I saw this one guy's getting arrested. He's sitting there holding a goat. I'm going to sacrifice this, But this is what they say. It's time to build a third Jewish temple and renew sacrifices. The religious organization also said this: "Dear government," speaking to their own government, "and Arabs, you're messing with the wrong generation." They further warned. Oh, by the way, the United Nations is also still trying to figure out what to do with Jerusalem as well, as prophesied here. Is Jerusalem becoming a cup of staggering? Oh, yes, it is. In April of this past year, the UN issued this statement: "The international community must take immediate action to stop Israel's forced evictions and displacement of Palestinians in East Jerusalem as part of Israel's annexation and de-Palestinization of the city," UN-appointed independent rights experts said on Thursday. And like anybody paid attention to that. On Twitter, they actually posted this: "Israel. The world's attention has been on Israel's recklessness with deadly attacks against Israeli and international civilians making headlines. All the while, tenfold Palestinian deaths were not making similar headlines." That's a lie. It plain is a lie. But as you can tell, the UN is trying to gin something up. They continue. "In neighborhoods adjacent to the old city of Jerusalem, an estimated 150 Palestinian families are at risk of forced eviction and displacement by Israeli authorities and settlers. Over the past decades, hundreds of Palestinian properties in occupied East Jerusalem have been taken over by settlers." By the way, they didn't own any of these. These all belong to Jews, and they're just taking it back. They've actually been able to track the property rights back to various members of the Jewish community. They allow the transfer of pre-1948 Jewish property to the original owners or their heirs. So they're doing that kind of research. The current legislation helps settler organizations expropriate Palestinian properties through a manipulation of the law. Well, they stole the property, many cases in 1940, 41, 42, 43, leading up to the 1948 Declaration of Independence. The UN calls it lawfare. The law is discriminatory and acquisitive by design and there's no rights to restitution existing for 1 million Palestinians. There's no such nation as Palestine. These are folks who decided to evacuate the nation because the surrounding Arab communities that declared war in 1948 said, "We're going to fight a real quick war, then you can have whatever you want when you get back." They lost the war. These folks evacuated to these other countries, and then all of a sudden Egypt, Jordan, Syria, they didn't want them either. And some of them came back to Israel. But by that time, a lot of the stuff was gone. They sold their land. They did, we'll get it all free. Yeah, it didn't work out. The prophecy of Zechariah is beginning to be fulfilled right now. As these Gentile nations through the UN come against Jerusalem, they will begin to drink from a rather vast cup. And they hope to derive pleasure from it by getting what they want to do. They want the Jewish people to do what they want Israel to do, and they're going to find out it is not going to happen. They will run away reeling and staggering, no longer in control as they thought they would be. There is global concern about Jerusalem. Yet as we continue to witness those nations that engage in trying to control, sometimes reel at what's taking place, and they choose to accept the lies, and they go running. They can't figure out what to do. Or as a group of terrorists said when they were firing rockets at Israel, their God makes them all go out into the Mediterranean. Get over it. This is all about a future siege, and that's what we're going to be talking about, is this future battle. It's the Battle of Armageddon by the nations of the world. But we see aspects of it already beginning. It's visible. We're so close to the tribulation and to the rapture that the shadows of all of the events of the future, we're seeing it now. The convergence of all the different things that Jesus said to look for, they're all happening at the same time. When we look at anything, we have to look at it through the lens of prophecy. And that's what we're going to be doing the next several weeks as we go through these chapters, looking at what Zechariah says, the end of the age, the Battle of Armageddon, what it's all going to be about. The siege is related to the rejection of the Good Shepherd. That's why it's taking place. It's related to the acceptance of the foolish shepherd, which they will do. They will accept him. And there's aspects of a future battle in this also that we call the campaign or war of Armageddon, or whatever you want to call it. It all takes place at the end of the tribulation. And prophetically, we're being taken to that point, yet to take place where the armies of the nations are beginning to be marshaled together for a final solution, we have to start where we are today. But Satan is the one who's calling the shots. He's the one who's going to be bringing all the nations together in a final attempt by Satan to prevent Messiah from coming again. He actually believes that if he can exterminate all of God's people, all the Jews, then there's nothing for God to return back for. That's not going to happen. Jesus has already told us, and God's already said he's going to miraculously protect them. But that's been the goal of Satan since Genesis 3. He believed that when Adam and Eve sinned, God would just go, well, I'm done with you, bam, and that's it, zap, end of mankind. Didn't happen. That he thought he would win, that he no longer would have a rival for power. Well, he got kicked out, and so did man. And ever since then, there have been moves by the unseen realm, the unsaved portion of it, the unfaithful portion of it, to corrupt mankind. They wanted to corrupt mankind to the point that there were no humans left for Messiah to come. That's what Genesis 6 is all about. Yeah, and God said there's going to be a flood, and I've got these guys over here by Noah. He's perfect in all of it. He's genetically okay. He's not been tainted. It didn't work. Well, then they tried to destroy man from following, and God split everybody up. And then there is an identification of a specific group called the Jews, and eventually down to the line of David. And Satan tried to destroy the line of David, and it didn't work either. The flood was the answer to the first major attempt. The hiding of a baby in the temple for a few years was the solution to the second almost successful attempt. When Jesus arrived on the scene, Satan thought that by killing the Messiah, it would solve his problem, and Jesus wouldn't be there. There's no more Messiah. See, he didn't understand what the scripture said either. It didn't. Paul actually says they wouldn't have done it if they had known what was going to be the result. Since then, it's all been about destroying his people, the Jews and believers. Why events such as the Holocaust? It's a move by Satan to try and eliminate all the Jews from the planet. He really believes that if he kills them all off, then Messiah can't return. It's not going to work. But he thinks that if there's no Jews left, then there's no one who'll be able to pray and ask for Messiah to deliver them, as we'll read about in Zechariah 13. And we're going to find out how futile that idea is as we continue our study of this really interesting book.
This has been the Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown. Today's message comes from a study that Pastor Ken has been leading us through in the book of Zechariah. This book was written shortly after the Israelites returned from exile, as they were still rebuilding their homeland. While they struggled to rebuild a fallen kingdom, God was inviting them to a kingdom that will endure forever. That eternal kingdom is open to you as well. If you'd like to learn more about how you can be a part of the kingdom of God, we'd love to help you on your next steps. You can visit us online at theunsafebible.com and then click on the Connect card button in the Connect tab. There you can fill in your information and let us know how we can be praying for you. and we can help you get connected with resources to teach you more about following the Lord. If you'd like to hear more messages from this series on the book of Zechariah, or on any other book of the Bible, you can find a message archive by clicking on the Media tab. Also, if you happen to be in Hobe Sound, Florida, we'd love to invite you to worship with us in person at Calvary Chapel, Martin County. You'll find more details about our services on our website. We believe that worshiping in person with other believers is one of the most important ways to strengthen your relationship with Jesus. Well, there's plenty more to unpack from the book of Zechariah. Pastor Ken will be back soon for another message straight from God's Word. Until next time, thank you for joining us today here on the Unsafe Bible.